the Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View.
Good Sunday morning and welcome to Capitol View. I'm Mallory Brooks. May brought historic flooding to Arkansas and put the state's levees to the test. In June, the governor signed an executive order creating a levee task force and asking for legislative approval for $10 million to repair Arkansas's levee system. And last week, Governor Hutchinson announced all 25 members of that new group. State Senator Jason Rayford from Conway has been a longtime proponent for improving the levee system. He joins us this afternoon in studio. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
You have been talking about this for years now, knowing that this would be a problem. We saw that problem just a month ago. Kind of talk about the legislation leading up to this in 2016.
Well, you're exactly right, and I appreciate you for taking time. And my first introduction really up close to what was going on with the levees in the river was 2015. I actually own a farm that's now on the Arkansas River just south of the Toadsuck Lock and Dam. It's really just almost directly across from the Conway Airport where the Lolly Levee, which you saw so much footage of. And in 15, we had a very, very high flood that came in that year and flooded some of that area over there. And I noticed some of the areas where the water was coming in, and it did the same thing in really right at January the 1st of 2016. There was a massive flood. In fact, that was one of the historic crests. And what I found out, Mallory, was that was the actual area that had breached in 1990.
Wow.
And so I could hear this running in at my house, at my farm. And the governor and I discussed this the other day. I called him that evening and told him, I said, we're going to have help over here because they don't have the resources in Perry County to be able to handle this breach. Well, those two floods came and went. And what I found out is that literally was the breach in 1990 that flooded, and when Toadsuck Days moved to Conway, Arkansas.
Wow.
It was because of that flood. And I realized nobody has made an effort to fix this particular breach since 1990. So that put me on a process of finding out who's in charge, who has responsibility. I went to the Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They said, our authority ends at the levee. That would be a levee district. Talked with the county judge because there's nobody that was serving on a levee district, and he said, our authority stops because that is a levee district, so there has to be a board that's taking care of it. And so we began to discover that there was what we call a defunct levee board. It just was not operating. And so that put us on a process to figure out how do we get somebody active again on those boards so that they're taking care of the levees and doing their job. And so what happened is we passed legislation in 2016 in a special session. And the governor was kind enough to get on board with that and put it on the call. And it upgraded some previous legislation. And what that legislation actually did was require the reports that are sent in from levee boards are to be sent into county clerks. And then those county clerks are to forward that on to the Arkansas Natural Resources Commission. And if they don't do that, number one, that tells us there's a problem that that levee board's not operating properly. But number two, there is some teeth there in that legislation that could even be fines for them not turning in their report, and also could mean that they couldn't actually get access to monies if they're out of compliance with that. And so we found out recently during this latest historic flood event, after the fact, the governor announced that of about 90 expected reports that should have been there, there was only about 20 reports that got turned in.
Wow.
And so what's happening is that over the last many decades, people have just taken for granted the protection they have from these levees. And some of these members have died and never been replaced, and some have just moved on and they're lying there dormant. But yet many of our towns and communities are in danger because you have levees that are not properly maintained.
And we saw this through this historic flooding. Some of these levees built decades ago. And once we see these problems, once we see what we're looking at right now, which became just a devastating video that was seen around the country, what do we do at this point to fix it? Because this is not just one easy fix. This is going to be a pretty big problem to address.
That's exactly right. Well, it's a process. The information and the details that we discovered in 15 and 16 led to a couple changes. What happened after that? Well, in Perry County, for instance, and this is a model for what we hope will happen in other levees, the Perry County Levee District did not have an operating board. They took the authority given in the legislation that we passed. The Perry County judge appointed 3 men to the board. The board got active. The board applied for a grant to fix floodgates that were in disrepair, and they also got money to fix the breach from 1990. They did so. And so some of the minor floods that we've had, it's kept that area dry and kept the road where it's passable for people getting out of Perry County into Conway, into Faulkner County. And so we saw improvement that was there, and here's what's key. They literally got their certification from the Corps of Engineers probably within just weeks or months of this flooding event. That now means they qualify for 80% federal money to repair that levee. Otherwise, they would be like some of the others that you've heard about where they get zero. So what we're going to do is, you know, the governor has appointed a task force, and it's made up of leaders in state government, county government, municipal government across the board, and a few of us from the legislature. And that task force is going to study the status quo. What do we have here now? What's working? What's not? And let's look at what's not working and make recommendations for improvements to that. And we can now track some data. We know what was supposed to be happening from 16. You've seen mass non-compliance in terms of the reporting that should be done. And there's an obligation here. These levees aren't something that can be neglected year in and year out. The reason that the Lolly levee held in Conway, which is part of my district, is because Twigg Satterfield and his levee board has taken the steps they need to for annual maintenance to make sure that they have that levee properly maintained, they're keeping vegetation and trees off of the levee the best that they can, and doing the right things. And we have some of the larger levee systems, the Mississippi River area, the St. Francis River area, some of these areas where they have been maintaining their levees properly. We've got to make sure those best practices are laid across the board to some of these other areas, and just re-educate people on why it's necessary for these levee systems to be kept up to par. And
they'll be listening this time around after what we saw. State Senator Jason Rapert, thank you for joining us. More to come from the Task Commission as they continue to meet. And coming up after a quick break, we speak with the chair of the Levee Task Force and the director of the Arkansas Department of Emergency Management. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
New ice cream cookie sandwiches from Sonic. Delicious cookies and real ice cream are on a summer reunion tour. They taste so good live. Hurry in for Sonic Nights. New $1.49 ice cream cookie sandwiches and half-price shakes after 8.
Right now, join Planet Fitness for $1 down, no commitment. Or you can work out at home. From the comfort of your own bedroom or surrounded by the lights of your life. Leave home at home and leave the gym to us. Get a great workout with treadmills, ellipticals, weights, free fitness training, and more. Join Planet Fitness for $1 down, $10 a month, no commitment. Ends July 16th.
Join at any Central Arkansas Planet Fitness. Hurry, this offer ends Tuesday, July 16th.
Have you ever wanted a brand new camper? Hi, I'm Misty Gibson for John Gibson Auto Sales, and we are an official Gulfstream camper dealer. Whether you have good credit, bad credit, or no credit, we will finance your brand new Gulfstream camper. We also have a large selection of used campers, cars, trucks, SUVs, motorcycles, ATVs, performance trailers, and boats. Check us out online at johngibsonautosales.com, and we will have your purchase ready when you get here.
Celebrate your freedom in style and save big during the extended July 4th sale at Furniture Row. Shop today and get huge discounts on every sofa, every dining table, and every bed. Plus, save up to $500 on all Tempur-Breeze mattresses and make your money work for you with 4 years no-interest financing. Shop the largest selection at the lowest prices guaranteed and discover that fresh new summer look. Hurry, the extended July 4th sale at Furniture Row ends soon.
I'm really getting a vacation vibe off of this mocktail slot.
This has transported me to some peaceful beach.
We needed to get away.
From what?
From that parking space.
Oh, yeah, we were there last week.
All week!
Get them while you can. New mocktail slushes like Pina Colada.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back to Capitol View on this Sunday morning. Historic flooding hit the natural state in May, carrying over to June, putting levees across Arkansas to the test. Some failed, but many prevailed. Governor Hutchinson putting together a task force to make sure all the levees pass their test the next time this happens. Joining us this morning, Chair of the task force, Jamie Cook, who is also Secretary of the Department of Public Safety and also the Director of the Arkansas Department of Emergency Management, A.J. Gary. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Of course, this happened a month or two ago, but we are still seeing the effects. We're going to talk about what the task force is doing, but first, AJ, I want to talk about where we are as far as flood recovery. I know that you are still in the middle of it, helping these families recover.
Yeah, absolutely. And we finished up the response phase, which in this particular incident, disaster, was a little over 2 weeks. And during that time, you know, one of the kind of, I think, neat things about it is, during this disaster, during this event, we had all of our emergency support functions, so all of our state agencies that are part of our disaster response were in the Emergency Operations Center with us, along with our federal partners, and we were coordinating all of the way through this with our local partners, our county judges, our county emergency managers, and our mayors in those counties that were affected by the flood. So we finished that up. Now we're in the recovery phase. So we are wrapping up the individual assistance portion and getting into the public assistance. So we're really looking at the roads, the infrastructure that was impacted by this flood.
It was absolutely devastating, but the response, you know, from federal officials, from local officials, from the state, and also so many volunteers across Arkansas, all hands on deck to help these Arkansans dealing with it. Such a great effort there. Now let's talk about if this were to happen again. We don't want to see any of the levees breached, and that's where this task force comes in. 26 members now. The first meeting happened Friday, and the governor giving 4 objectives with a deadline of December 31st. What are those objectives?
Well, we have to study and analyze the current conditions of our state's levees. We're also going to identify sources and requirements for funding the construction, repair, and maintenance of those levees. We need to study the prospective monitoring and reporting systems for the maintenance of those levees, and then we need to review the adequacy of our current laws and the organizational structure of the levee systems and the levee boards. So we've got quite the work to do in front of us, but we've got a great team and we're going to get it done. And I've promised the governor that not only will we meet the deadline of December 31st, but we will beat that deadline. So we're very excited to dive into this very important, urgent work.
And taking a look at the list of members, 26 members, State Senator Jason Rapert, who we talked to earlier in this show. We have some legislators. We have the Dardanelle mayor, who was really a champion during this event, you know, just really helping rally his community. So many people who helped and saw this. Kind of talk about not who else, or just the kind of people making up this task force.
Well, the task force is made up of members of our Congress, the citizens, OEM, emergency managers, county judges, county clerks, a lot of cabinet heads for the state agencies and the departments. So it's quite a diverse group of wonderful experience. We have engineers, we have just you name it, we have it. And also what's been so encouraging is even not on the task force, we have people reaching out to us left and right wanting to come and offer assistance and guidance, and their subject matter experts all around us that are willing to step up and help. So even though the team at this time is at 26, I can assure you that there's so many others that's willing to help. So just truly the Arkansan way.
That's true. I'm telling you, Arkansans are the most giving, caring people in the world. You know, taking a look back at what happened in May and in June, Dardanelle, for example, that levee breaching. The last inspection was in 2010, according to the National Levee Database. Do you think really more oversight would have kept this levee from breaching?
Well,
I mean, it's possible, yes. You know, we work really close with the Corps of Engineers. In fact, they're going to be some of the are the subject matter experts that will be attending our task force meetings to be looking at all of the levees and give us advice on where each of those levee systems are at in the core system. So with some of those need to be brought back up to standards. Some of them are in really good shape. So you know, we're going to be looking at all of them across the state, and not just along the Arkansas River. We have levees up and throughout the state that we're going to be looking at.
That's right, absolutely. Not just the ones that were tested. There are many, many levees across the state. 114 levees, according to the National Levee Database, covering 1,300 miles in Arkansas. This is not an easy task, but kind of looking forward, what do you hope to accomplish by the end of the year with this?
Well, we hope to know the location of all the levees, because what's in the national database are the known levees. You know, if a property owner builds a levee, do we know about that? We need to have a really good comprehensive review of every single levee that we have out there, the condition of that levee, what's needed to make sure that levee withstands you know, any flooding in the future. And by the end of this task force, that's all the information that we hope to know, so that we can give the governor good recommendations on what we need to make sure that we are safeguarding our citizens from the floods.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about what is accomplished with the task force, and we sure appreciate both of you for joining us on Capitol View. Thank you both. Back, we take a look at your top political headlines. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
Soak up the savings on a new hot spring spa. Townley Pool and Spa now offers 0% for 60 months on the world's best-selling spa. We make it easy so you can take it easy.
Ah, Townley.
Here's your Buick, sir.
Actually, that's my Buick.
How are we going to fit in your mom's Buick?
Easy.
I like that new Buick.
Me too.
I was actually talking about that Buick.
I knew that.
Did you?
Buick's fresh new lineup is full of surprises.
Get 13% below MSRP on most 2019 Buick Encore models. That's over $3,400 below MSRP on this 2019 Buick Encore Preferred. See your Arkansas Select Buick dealer.
Boy, it's just what I thought. It's all going to have to come out.
If you don't have dental insurance, paying the bill can be really expensive. After all, just a simple cleaning can cost $150. And other procedures like crowns and root canals can cost hundreds, even thousands more. But now you can get dental insurance for about $1 a day from Physicians Mutual Insurance Company. Call us for a free information kit. Our dental insurance helps cover over 350 procedures, everything from cleanings and fillings to crowns and dentures. Your acceptance is guaranteed for one of these insurance policies, even if you're retired or on Medicare. There are no deductibles and there's no annual maximum. Plus, you can see any dentist you choose. Take the pain out of big dental bills with Physicians Mutual. Call us now for your free information kit with all the details.
We're home. Let's go. What kind of SUV is that?
It's a brand new Buick Enclave. That really makes it easy to unload all those little maniacs. Sure does. Hey, honey, we should get one of those and have like a ton more kids.
Yeah, I love that. More kids.
Yeah.
Introducing the all-new Buick Enclave, tomorrow's SUV for today's family.
Get over $5,800 below MSRP on this 2019 Enclave Avenir. See your Arkansas Select Buick dealer.
Soak up the savings on a new hot spring spa. Townley Pool and Spa now offers 0% for 60 months on the world's best-selling spa. We make it easy so you can take it easy.
Ah, Townley.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Well, welcome back to Capitol View. After days of political pressure, U.S. Labor Secretary Alex Acosta is stepping down. Acosta has been under fire for the way he handled a sex crimes case against wealthy businessman Jeffrey Epstein more than a decade ago when he was U.S. Attorney for Southern Florida. Acosta made the announcement to reporters on Friday while standing next to President Trump outside of the White House.
Over the last week, I've seen a lot of coverage of the Department of Labor. And what I have not seen is incredible job creation that we've seen in this economy. More than 5 million jobs. I haven't seen that workplace injuries are down, bucking a 3-year trend. Workplace fatalities are down, bucking a 3-year trend. That we had the safest year ever in mining, the lowest number of fatalities ever in mining. I have seen coverage of this case that is over 12 years old, that has input and vetting at multiple levels of Department of Justice. And as I look forward, I do not think it is right and fair for this administration's Labor Department to have Epstein as the focus rather than the incredible economy that we have today. It would be...
And the Deputy Labor Secretary will lead the department on an acting basis in the meantime. Former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren leading the Democratic presidential pack, according to the first NBC News Wall Street Journal poll of the 2020 field. Biden gets the support of 26% of voters who say they will take part in next year's Democratic primaries or caucuses. 19% back Warren. They're followed by Senators Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders, who are tied at 13%. South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg gets the support of 7% of Democratic primary voters. Beto O'Rourke and Andrew Yang are at 2%. No other candidate gets more than 1%. But take note, only 12% of Democratic voters say their mind is definitely made up. So there could be plenty of movement in the months ahead. Every year, thousands of cell phones are smuggled into prisons all over the country. Congress is working on a way to make sure the signals can't get out, but Washington correspondent Jesse Tenora reports why some prison rights advocates want lawmakers to hang up their efforts.
They're committing crimes from within the prisons.
Too often, criminal activity doesn't stop when a convict begins life behind bars. The FCC reports many smuggle in cell phones that can keep them connected to crime.
Some are ordering hits, ordering murders.
Tennessee Congressman David Kustoff is working on legislation with Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton to allow state prisons to do what those at the federal level already can: jam contraband phone signals.
It would give jails and prisons the option of using this technology.
But some prison rights advocates argue Congress should instead focus on keeping contraband cell phones out of prisons in the first place.
It really is an example of closing the barn door long after the horse is gone.
David Foddy is the National Prison Project Director at the American Civil Liberties Union. He says most prisoners depend on contraband cell phones not for crimes, but to call their families, something that costs them about $10 a minute if they use a prison phone.
If we made those phone calls affordable, contraband cell phones would all but disappear.
But the FCC doesn't currently regulate the cost of those calls, turning its focus to blocking mobile signals. In Washington, I'm Jesse Tenor.
Jesse, thank you. The House passed a bill on Friday that would replenish the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi held a news conference ahead of that vote. She, along with Representative Jerry Nadler, said the measure would soon be in the hands of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who previously committed to a Senate vote in August. Stewart, along with 9/11 first responders and their families, called on McConnell to keep his promise.
When people get on the floor and they hem and haw about, well, what's the pay for and where do we go with this and how do we do, it's very difficult to watch a House and a Senate with $1 trillion deficit try and balance that budget of $10.2 billion over 10 years on the backs of 9/11 victims and first responders. It's like watching Joey Chestnut throw down 70 hot dogs in Coney Island and then at the end of it not have a Coke because he's watching, you know, the calories.
If passed, the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund would last until 2090, allowing first responders and other victims affected by the terrorist attacks to receive compensation. Well, the debate to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour keeps getting traction, but no one's really sure what the final result would look like. That new report says 17 million Americans would get a raise if Congress enacted a $15 an hour federal minimum wage, and more than 1 million people would be pulled out of poverty. Economist Heidi Strauss-Holz says it's a no-brainer.
We will see increase in workers' wages, a reduction in poverty, a reduction in inequality.
What they tend to show is that a number of people get higher wages and a number of people lose their jobs.
But the report from the Congressional Budget Office also says some Americans and American businesses would not do so well. House Democrats say they plan to hold a vote on the issue this session. The minimum wage bill was introduced by Congressman Bobby Scott, a Democrat from Virginia. Coming up, we share the life and legacy of H. Ross Perot. You're watching Capitol View on this Sunday morning.
Tune in every Thursday morning for the Today Show Minute. Greg Curtis from the Good Earth Garden Center will share timely tips to keep your lawn and garden looking beautiful all year long. That's the Today Show Minute every Thursday morning on KARK-4.
Sold it. Absolute real estate auction at 821 Eagle Mountain Boulevard in Batesville with the 3,600 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom home in Eagle Mountain subdivision. Seller regardless of price. Wednesday, July 31st at 11 a.m. For auction details, go to wilsonauctioneers.com. Sold it.
Right now, join Planet Fitness for $1 down, no commitment. Or you can work out at home. From the comfort of your own bedroom or surrounded by the lights of your life. Leave home at home and leave the gym to us. Get a great workout with treadmills, ellipticals, weights, free fitness training, and more. Join Planet Fitness for $1 down, $10 a month, no commitment. Ends July 16th.
Join at any Central Arkansas Planet Fitness. Hurry, this offer ends Tuesday, July 16th.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
H. Ross Perot, the self-made billionaire from Texas who made 2 bids for the White House, has died at the age of 89. Chuck Todd reports.
The self-made man from Texarkana.
The party's over, and it's time for the cleanup crew.
Henry Ross Perot founded Electronic Data Systems in 1962 with a $1,000 check, later selling the company to General Motors and becoming an early tech billionaire. In 1992, he catapulted into national politics.
If you want to register me in 50 states, number one, I'll promise you this, between now and the convention, we'll get both parties' heads straight.
The most successful third-party candidate since Teddy Roosevelt in 1912 to this day, Bush and Clinton supporters debate who Perot hurt more in 1992.
And you don't care about anything but making money, there will be a giant sucking sound going south.
At a time when public trust in government was lower than during Watergate, Perot appealed to a group of disenchanted voters on one issue, the deficit, selling his message with folksy charisma.
As I've said before, it's time to take out the trash and clean out the barn.
TV appearances.
Look out, George Bush. Here comes H. Ross Perot.
And infomercials.
That's what we could have done with $4 trillion if we hadn't wasted it.
Perot could be combative.
You have said that part of your $40 billion deficit
also told your program
is $180 billion.
Yes, may I finish?
May I finish? It was a simple question.
Well, you've already finished. Go finish again. It's your program. You can do anything you want to with it. Go ahead.
But his message stuck. He won nearly 20 million votes and became a pop culture phenomenon.
The deficit is like a crazy ant down in the basement. No one is paying attention to her. And she is just getting unrear and stinkier. You catch me?
Although he finished third both in 92 and in 1996, Perot's ability to appeal to political outsiders, his personal wealth, and populist campaigns, particularly on the issue of trade, was a forerunner to Donald Trump.
I'm putting up my own money. I don't know if it's ever happened. I guess Ross Perot put up his money.
A graduate of the Naval Academy, Perot was honored with the Medal for Distinguished Public Service for his work on behalf of POWs.
And these men have great value to their wives, their children, and their parents.
His life defined by his favorite motto, inspired by Winston Churchill.
Never give in, never give in, never, never, never.
And his love for the Lone Star State.
I was Texas born, Texas bred, and Texarkana raised, and when I die, I'll be Texas dead.
And Chuck Todd has much more coming up on the life and legacy of Ross Perot coming up next on Meet the Press. Thank you so much for joining us for Capitol View on the Sunday morning. Have a great rest of the weekend.